Hey guys, welcome back. We're getting ready to start part two. Congrats, that's a big accomplishment. So we are done with part one of Fahrenheit 451. Today we'll be moving on to part two. Your task is to read through 67 to 81 and then complete the reading task along with that. So be sure to go ahead and open your part two guide. I do not have my part two guide open because I'm not prepared. So let me go back. You're, of course, opening yours from Google Classroom. Oops, all over the place, y'all. Sorry. Okay, cool. So your part two reading guide, it's the exact same as your part one reading guide. Uh, this section will cover pages 67 to 106. Your reading chunk for today is over here. Your reading task is to answer this question. According to Faber, what are the three things missing from society? Explain both what they are and why he thinks they are important. So your workspace is over here. You will explain what each of the three things are that's missing from society. So thing number one, tell me what it is. Thing number two, tell me what it is over here. Thing number three that's missing, tell me what it is over here. And then underneath each one, you will just briefly describe why Faber thinks these things are important. So 1 to 2 complete sentences is sufficient for that. Let's go ahead and get started reading. Part 2, The Seas and the Sand. They read the long afternoon through, and while the cold November rain fell from the sky upon the quiet house, they sat in the hall because the parlor was so empty and gray-looking, without its walls lit with orange and yellow confetti and skyrockets and women in gold mesh dresses and men in black velvet pulling 100-pound rabbits from silver hats. The parlor was dead, and Mildred kept peering at it with a blank expression as Montague paced the floor and came back and squatted down and read a page as many as 10 times aloud. So remember, the last scene that we left off on in part one is where Montag shows Mildred his stockpile of books, and then they go move forward and they start reading them together. We cannot tell the precise moment when friendship is formed. As in filling a vessel drop by drop, there is at last a drop which makes it run over. So in a series of kindnesses, there is at last one which makes the heart run over. Montag sat listening to the rain. Is that what it was in the girl next door? I've tried so hard to figure. She's dead. Let's talk about someone alive, for goodness sake. Montag did not look back at his wife as he went trembling along the hall to the kitchen, where he stood a long time watching the rain hit the windows before he came back down the hall in the gray light, waiting for the tremble to subside. He opened another book. That favorite subject, myself. He squinted at the wall. The favorite subject, myself. I understand that one, said Mildred. But Clarice's favorite subject wasn't herself. It was everyone else and me. She was the first person in a good many years I've really liked. She was the first person I can remember who looked straight at me as if I counted. He lifted the two books. These men have been dead a long time, but I know their words point one way or another to Clarice. Outside the front door in the rain, a faint scratching. Montag froze. He saw Mildred thrust herself back to the wall and gasp. Someone, the door. Why doesn't the door voice tell us? I shut it off. Under the doorsill, a slow, probing sniff, an exhalation of electric steam. Mildred laughed. It's only a dog, that's what. You want me to shoo him away? Stay where you are. Silence. The cold rain falling, and the smell of blue electricity blowing under the locked door. Let's get back to work, said Montag quietly. Mildred kicked at a book. Books aren't people. You read and I look around, but there isn't anybody. He stared at the parlor that was dead and gray as the waters of an ocean that might teem with life if they switched on the electric sun. Now, said Mildred, my family is people. They tell me things. I laugh, they laugh, and the colors. Yes, I know. And besides, if Captain Beatty knew about those books, she thought about it. Her face grew amazed and then horrified. He might come and burn the house and the family. That's awful. Think of our investment. Why should I read? What for? What for? Why? Said Montag. I saw the damnedest snake in the world the other night. It was dead, but it was alive. It could see, but it couldn't see. You want to see that snake? It's at emergency hospital where they filed a report on all the junk the snake got out of you. Would you like to go and check their file? Maybe you'd look under Guy Montag, or maybe under Fear or War. Would you like to go to that house that burnt last night and rake ashes for the bones of the woman who set fire to her own house? What about Clarice McClellan? Where do we look for her? The morgue? Listen. The bombers crossed the sky over the house, gasping, murmuring, whistling like an immense, invisible fan, circling in emptiness. Jesus God, said Montag, every hour, so many damn things in the sky. How the hell did those bombers get up there every second of our lives? Why doesn't someone want to talk about it? We've started and won 2 atomic wars since 1960. Is it because we're having so much fun at home we've forgotten the world? Is it because we're so rich and the rest of the world so poor that we just don't care if they are? I've heard rumors the world is starving, but we're well fed. Is it true the world works hard and we play? Is that why we're hated so much? I've heard the rumors about hate too, once in a long while over the years. Do you know why? I don't, that's sure. Maybe the books can get us half out of the cave. They just might stop us from making the same damn insane mistakes. I don't hear those idiot bastards in your parlor talking about it. God, Milly, don't you see? An hour a day, 2 hours with these books, and maybe the telephone rang. Mildred snatched the phone. Anne! She laughed. Yes, the White Clown's on tonight. Montag walked to the kitchen and threw the book down. Montag, he said, you're really stupid. Where do we go from here? Do we turn the books in? Forget it? He opened the book to read over Mildred's laughter. Poor Milly, he thought. Poor Montag. It's mud to you, too. But where do you get help? Where do you find a teacher this late? Hold on. He shut his eyes. Yes, of course. Again he found himself thinking of the Green Park a year ago. The thought had been with him many times recently, but now he remembered how it was that day in the city park when he had seen that old man in the black suit hide something quickly in his coat. The man leapt up as if to run, and Montag said, Wait! I haven't done anything, cried the old man, trembling. No one said you did. They had sat in the green soft light without saying a word for a moment, and then Montag talked about the weather, and then the old man responded with a pale voice. It was a strange, quiet meeting. The old man admitted to being a retired English professor who had been thrown out upon the world 40 years ago, when the last liberal arts college shut for lack of students and patronage. His name was Faber, and when he finally lost his fear of Montag, he talked in a cadenced voice, looking at the sky and the trees and the Green Park, and when an hour had passed he said something to Montag, and Montag sensed it was a rhymeless poem. Then the old man grew even more courageous and said something else, and that was a poem too. Faber held his hand over his left coat pocket and spoke these words gently, and Montag knew if he reached out he might pull a book of poetry from the man's coat. But he did not reach out. His hand stayed on his knees, numbed and useless. I don't talk things, sir, said Faber. I talk the meaning of things. I sit here and know I'm alive. That was all there was to it, really. An hour of monologue, a poem, a comment, and then, without even acknowledging the fact that Montag was a fireman, Faber, with a certain trembling, wrote his address on a slip of paper. For your file, he said, in case you decide to be angry with me. I'm not angry, Montag said, surprised. Mildred shrieked with laughter in the hall. Montag went to his bedroom closet and flipped through his file wallet to the heading, Future Investigations. Faber's name was there. He hadn't turned it in and he hadn't erased it. He dialed the call on a secondary phone. The phone on the far end of the line called Faber's name a dozen times before the professor answered in a faint voice. Montag identified himself and was met with a lengthy silence. Yes, Mr. Montag? Professor Faber, I have a rather odd question to ask. How many copies of the Bible are left in this country? I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm going to pause reading here. Again, folks, we've finished up reading up to 71 together. According to the pacing guide, you've got to read up to 81 and complete your reading task. So just as a reminder, according to Faber, the character we've just been introduced to, who Montag is going to speak with further on the phone, what 3 things are missing from society and why are each of these things important? So enjoy the rest of your reading for today up to 81. If you have any questions, just join the virtual chat or shoot me an email and I will help you out. Until tomorrow, see ya.